Recording in progress. Thank you. Yeah, I've been a board member for just over a year now. And I have the pleasure of actually getting to introduce Parker, Catherine, and Eliza for a conversation that's going to be taking place shortly. So Catherine, as many of you probably know, is the executive director for the Center for Courage and Renewal. She's also a facilitator. And Eliza is a new member to the board, actually. And it's very interesting. I met Eliza for the first time last week. And Catherine, I've sort of known for the last year through board membership. But I've actually not been in the same space as Parker Palmer. So this is a very unique opportunity for me. But Parker has certainly been in spaces that I've been in. I first came across the name Parker Palmer through the work of Mark Nepo, who is an amazing poet that I love. And about, I think probably 12, 13 years ago now, I think I saw an interview with Mark Nepo, and he referenced Parker. And in a number of his books, there were also testimonials featuring the name Parker Palmer. And I was very curious about this Parker person. And then some years after that, my husband was on a leadership program, and he came back and he's like, oh, they gave us a number of books. And one of the books in his suitcase was A Hidden Wholeness, a journey towards, I think, an unlived life. Sorry, no, undivided life. That's right. A journey towards an undivided life. And what was really interesting was the year before, I'd actually developed a program called something along the lines of The Undivided Self at Work. And so seeing that book, I immediately thought, oh, we're kindred spirits. And I remember going online, just finding all sorts of things Parker Palmer related. And then in 2019, I had the opportunity to attend a retreat in the UK called Towards the Undivided Life, Inner Landscape, Navigating Our Inner Landscape. It was a program that was facilitated by one of the Circle of Trust facilitators, Barbara Reed. Some of you probably know her. I'm seeing some nods of heads, which was really amazing. And then shortly after that, Barbara put my name forward to be a board member. So it's really a great pleasure to be here and actually get to, I guess, meet Parker virtually. Hopefully we'll get to meet in person as well. 25 years ago, Parker Palmer, Marcy Johnson, and Rick Jackson founded what would today be known as the Center for Courage and Renewal. And I'm really looking forward to the conversation that Parker, Catherine, and Eliza are going to be having about the last 25 years. So on that note, I am going to pass the baton over to you, Catherine, for I'm sure it's going to be a really rich conversation.
Thank you so much, Ade. And what a great gift to us that A Hidden Wholeness found its way to you and you to us. Parker, Eliza, it is great to be with you and a few hundred of our friends from around the world in this Zoom room today, which is a thing that we would not have imagined would be possible 25 years ago.
Right. And I want to thank Ade for the lovely introduction and also for naming that mix of excitement and anxiety that I'm feeling too. Thank you for legitimating that, Ade. The 25 years are flooding in on me pretty rapidly here, and I appreciate the door you opened.
So I'm excited to celebrate with you all 25 years. I will be completely honest, when the center started, I was 10 years old. I've been reflecting a lot lately about how seeds can be planted before we even know that they are. And I keep imagining the 50-year celebration and us not even knowing what those seeds are, and hopefully 75 and beyond. And so I'm curious for you both, as you think about the seeds that have been planted, and the seeds that will continue to be planted, what is alive for you in this moment?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to me, Eliza, is that we really began back in the early 90s at the Fetzer Institute, very consciously holding the agricultural metaphor as the way we wanted to develop this organization. Not a mechanical metaphor, not an assembly line, not a train the trainer model, but the development of a culture and a set of practices that would allow community to emerge, embodying and carrying that culture forward. A culture of kindness, a culture of mutual respect, a culture of deep listening, which God knows the world needs a lot of, not just today, but always. And so the fact that you're lifting up seeds being planted, even when you're 10 years old, is very meaningful to me, because we consciously resisted any model of conveyor belt mass assembly, rampant up pressures that are so common in the nonprofit world. We grew it one link at a time, one seed at a time, one small plot at a time.
It's a beautiful question, Eliza. Thank you for it. It's taken me to several different places. One, just the remembrance that when a hidden wholeness came into my life, that was actually my the first book of yours, Parker, that I read as well. I didn't know the Center for Courage Renewal existed. I couldn't have known then for sure that I would be in the space that I'm in now. I couldn't have imagined the friendships and the community and the connections that being a part of this work has brought into my life. And I didn't know in that moment that I was headed into a time in my life where this work would probably be life-saving for me. The ability to learn how to hold really deep tensions in ways that were life-giving and not death-dealing. And so those things come up for me. It also comes up for me. We sent our oldest child off to college this year, and we have more, coming up in high school, middle school, and elementary school. And so when I think about the seeds that are being planted in their lives, there are words, there are phrases, there are practices of this approach that I hope will accompany them, because I think their lives depend on it, and certainly know mine does. So as I think ahead, to the next 25 years, it just having those remembrances lets me know we don't know what's coming. We can't know, and that's a gift in so many ways. But thankfully, we have this community that will help us face into whatever that is, and communities, because as both of you have noted, there are so many people in this world. Probably some of the seeds for this were planted in my life before I ever knew about this work. And there were places that those were growing that this helped to connect to. And so that is also true as well. So thank you for the question. What a beautiful opening.
I want to, something you said, Catherine, about this work being life-saving. Like, I don't take that lightly. That hits me right in the chest. And I have heard that from so many people who have experienced this work. And so I just want to pause, and if we can just sort of draw up some of that wisdom, like, what is it about this work that it touches something deeper than maybe we even know about?
Oh, I think it's well said, Eliza, maybe deeper than we even know, because there is a kind of mystery about it. what I can say out of my own consciousness is that when I planted first seeds and then was joined very quickly by Marcy Jackson and Rick Jackson, the founding co-directors who are so gifted at developing organizations and are a lot of the reason why we're here today celebrating 25 years. They oversaw the first 12, 13, 14, 15 years of that development. When I planted those first seeds, I was struggling with my own life. I mean, that wasn't the first time and it's not the last time, but I was, I think, projecting onto a vision of what this work might be, what I felt I needed in order to save my life. And there were moments, actually, as people who've read my books know, when I could say that quite literally, moments of profound struggle with deep depression, when I wondered at 3 points in my adult life whether it was worth taking next steps. At age 83, I'm very, very grateful that I found reason to take next steps and can be with an event such as this today. But I think what I'm conscious of that I needed was a couple of things. One was I needed safe space to be exactly who I was and how I was without internal editing. I needed to be able to look at myself, not just, you know, in private, but in front of people who were willing to extend something that has always felt a lot to me like unconditional love. And it's odd to say it because unconditional love at its real depths can be a very intimate, interpersonal thing, a true mystery. But there are certain practices that we can use in relationships, it seemed to me, that would help create the feeling of being seen, heard, and received. And at bottom, isn't that what every human being on this planet really wants? To be seen, heard, and received by someone, and really by as many someones as possible. Just the sense of validation that comes for your own integrity, your own identity, and for whatever you're struggling with, to not put you apart from the human race, but to make you a part of the human race, which is exactly the experience that I think we have in circles of trust. So I needed that solitary journey, you know, toward expressing and being received in my own identity and integrity. But I needed that to happen in community. For me, one of the great paradoxes of life is that we need solitude in order to survive. And I think the older one gets, the more one realizes, well, ultimately, this journey involves a passage which I can only take alone. And so I had better be at home with myself as I enter into that phase of life. But ultimately, our survival also depends on community, but a particular form of community, which isn't telling us what to think, what to wear, what to dress, what music to listen to, what beliefs to hold, but is helping us sort and sift in a non-judgmental way what it is that we're wrestling with. In our work, we like to think of community as supporting the individual's deeper and deeper conversation with herself or himself, listening to the voice of the inner teacher, which is one of our foundational convictions in this work. But we have a lot of voices within us, and not all of them are the inner teacher. Some of them are the voices of fear and greed and jealousy. And you need to be embedded in community to sort all that out. So that's about as close as I can come to naming, you know, what the secret sauce is. But there's a lot of detail to it, and there's a lot of commitment that people make. I think what's interesting about the commitment they make to particular practices or disciplines, if you will, is that it comes so easily when people realize the benefits of relating to each other and of relating to themselves in that way. It doesn't feel like hard work. It feels like the most liberating thing I've ever done.
I mean, that's the irony, right? That listening to the inner teacher and having an inner teacher is actually very natural. Being in community is what we're meant to do. And yet, I find the center and the center's work such a unique gem in the world because I'm so taught to listen to other voices. I didn't even know what an inner teacher was when I came to the center. Like, I was a young social worker being thrown into systems and systems of oppression and violence. And I was so focused out here. I didn't even know how to listen to my inner teacher until there were other people who could mirror that back to me.
Absolutely. I remember the first time I said to a retreat group, you know, when we're on retreats, we typically take notes in the following way. We first take notes on what the leader says, right? We second take notes on what some interesting people in the group say. And then we third, if at all, if ever, take notes on what we hear ourselves saying.
Mm.
And I said, in these retreats, these Circle of Trust retreats, I want you to reverse that order. I want you to have hardly any notes on what I say. I want you to have the most notes on what you hear yourself saying, because we have this strange conceit in Western culture that just because we've said something, we understand what it means. And we don't. Sitting with what I've said in a trustworthy environment often bears great fruit of saying, at 3 in the morning, saying, oh, I get it now. This is what I'm trying to say and wanting to say. So yeah, it's hard to listen to learn how to listen to your inner teacher.
I think part of the reason that this work is so life-saving actually connects back to Eliza, the seeds that you introduced into the conversation, because these obviously aren't the only seeds that are planted in us. And I think a lot of the work of our lives is trying to understand what is here, you know, what is that I want to claim and nurture and develop, and what is that I need to know and understand, because I don't feel like it's been planted in me, or I've been, you know, shaped in these ways, but they don't feel true to who I am, and they don't feel true to the way that I want to honor the integrity and the dignity of other people. Parker, you've said a lot of things in books and elsewhere, but I think one of the most profound ones, at least for me, is that violence is what happens when people don't know what else to do with their suffering.
Mm.
And that's been helpful in, you know, helping me understand, make some sense of the violence that is just everywhere, it feels like, around us. But it has also made a difference in my capacity to recognize the violence that I do to myself, and the violence that I have a capacity to inflict on the world, whether I want to or not, if I can't find a way to navigate the suffering that is a part of the human existence. And there are other things, right, that are a part of our human journey too. And how do we learn to hold things like joy alongside of suffering? How do we learn to hold things like the paradoxes and the tensions that we see all around us in community, the ways that, you know, we are many things just in and of ourselves. Yeah, well, if we could just do that, that would make a difference. It does make a difference. It's made a difference for me.
Eliza, are some of these things ringing bells with your lived experience in your first circle of trust or experience? Yeah.
You know, it's so interesting. So my first circle of trust was 10 years ago. And I remember people's faces, like I can remember their eyes. And I think this thread of having enough space to be with what's inside me, the violence that's inside me, the rage that's inside me, the grief that's inside me, and the joy that's inside me, even though I don't remember, right? I don't really remember what happened in the retreat, but my embodied sense of that, like I can't unlearn that. I can't unlearn what it feels like to be held in my complete wholeness by strangers and to be received in that. And I resonate with you, Catherine. It completely unlocked something that was I think it unlocked my inner teacher that was like, yo, I've been here. But listening to that inner teacher and then going out into the world and being reminded, oh, the world doesn't want me to listen to my inner teacher. And then coming back and saying, oh no, it's here. Oh no, it's here. Like that changed the course of my life. And I keep coming back to the seeds thing because I didn't know that would happen 10 years ago, right? I don't know what seeds are going to be planted from this conversation, from the inner teacher that I hope that we're all being reminded of in this moment, and the moments of integrity and courage it will take to continue to listen to that. Like that's the real work, is that coming back. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I'm proudest of about our work, and I hasten to add, this is the work of many, 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 many people. This is the work of hundreds of facilitators. This is the work of tens of thousands of participants. This is the work of staff, board members. It really is a we kind of thing. And one of the things I'm proudest about is that we've said from the beginning, we're not here to cheerlead for anything. So when we began working with K through 12 teachers, for example, back in the 90s, people who were already serving as our culture heroes and getting beaten up regularly for, all the good deeds they did. No good deed goes unpunished, and there's no professional example better than public school teachers to prove that axiom. We said to these people, this is a 2-year retreat experience, 25 of you. We're going to travel together through 2 years, but the point is not to try to keep you in teaching. The point is to help you have that deepening conversation with yourself that will allow you to do good vocational discernment. And if teaching is still your path, then you will have a chance to deepen in that vocation. If it's not your path, you'll have a chance to find out where you're now being called by your inner teacher. We're not here to tell you what to do or to give you our compass, which is really the great affront to the human spirit when somebody says, I have the agenda for you. That's what we're all trying to get away from. But this is a community in which you will find encouragement to listen to yourself more deeply as you learn to listen to others more deeply. It's so reciprocal and so mutually enhancing.
So I'm curious about the moments where the inner teacher maybe feels asleep, or maybe I doubt that it was ever there, or all these outside voices are telling me otherwise. What helps you tap back into trusting that it's there, and how do you cultivate that?
That's a great question for me, and the first thing I want to say is that, and I know this is not an answer, it's a circular answer, is that doing this work with hundreds, maybe thousands of other people sitting in circles of trust, those experiences have reinforced my belief in the reality of the inner teacher, because I've seen people being taken by surprise by the voice they heard from within. I've literally seen those moments when someone says, whoa, I didn't know that's who I was or what I wanted or where I was going. Or I've just said something that I've never said to another human being. And in one case with a doctor, a story that I often tell, he said, what I just said about the conditions under which I'm practicing medicine and how at risk my own soul is as I accede to these conditions. What I've just said is something I've never said to myself. And here I've said it to 25 fellow physicians, which was a phenomenal breakthrough in his life and actually led to some real institutional innovation and creativity. So the very experience of facilitating this for other people, which is why these stories thrill me, it has demonstrated to me time and time again, this is not smoke and mirrors. The inner teacher is very real, and it can rise up under the right circumstances and grab a person and say, listen up. But that listen up is coming from within. It's not coming from the leader. So there's that. In my personal case, I think the signs that I'm not listening to my inner teacher have become pretty strong. And I'll just thumbnail them by saying, in one way or another, I start getting sick. I start getting brain fog. I start getting confused. I may feel physically unwell, but it doesn't have to go that far. What it is for me is taking the time out to ask myself what's going on here, and to journey back once again to an inner source that can help orient me toward my North Star.
I'm noticing that we have about just maybe 2 or 3 more minutes left for the three of us to spend some time together. And then we want to open up some time to invite questions from others of you who are here. We are joined. I'm so moved by flipping through these screens and seeing familiar faces, unfamiliar faces, people from around the world. Some of you who were here in the very beginning of our work together. And so we want to give you an opportunity to share some of those questions that may be coming up for you as you're listening to this conversation. But before we make that transition, Eliza and Parker, I wonder what you might want to say in terms of your hopes for where we go from here and for what is possible.
I'm just feeling so moved seeing everyone's little boxes and faces here. For me, it reminds me that we all do have an inner teacher. And I've been reflecting lately on what it means to be a good ancestor. And so I want to say thank you to the folks who were doing this work when I was a teenager and didn't know about this work and then welcomed me into it. And my hope is that what I know to be true is that it helps me every day to be the best ancestor I can. And so my hope for this work is that we all continue to guide that forward and that we can remember that we're not alone in doing that. And because here we are, y'all, it gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel that that the world has always needed this kind of work. By this kind of work, I mean work that makes a deep bow to human identity and integrity, and at the same time builds community, builds relational trust, creates trustworthy spaces where we can all grow the way a plant grows, again, back to the seeds, at our own pace, in our own way, and toward our own sense of where the sun is. The world today is desperate for this. What's missing so badly today is relational trust, community, and I think identity and integrity is sadly lacking. So many folks seem to have stepped outside of their own souls, their own hearts, in service of what? A political ideology, or some kind of, I have to call it idolatry, that isn't serving anyone well, including them. You don't always know what's making you sick while it's making you sick. It sometimes takes a revolution of the soul to get outside of yourself enough to see, oh, I understand now, and I need to stop consuming that kind of toxicity. So we desperately need this work, and this is part of the paradox, we need to continue to do it at human scale. 25 years after we took a stand against mass production and ramping up, I'm more convinced than ever that, you know, as Margaret Mead said, what's going to change the world are those small groups that go deep with something as important as this and turn people back toward the world, toward the family, toward the community, toward workplaces and the public political life with their souls in hand and their souls intact, and who know how to build community as they go, because as was said at the beginning of this program, you can't do it alone. You really can't do it alone. So I think we have a lot to learn. We're trying to grow in all kinds of ways to embrace a fuller range of the human condition and the human possibility. But it's all about serving that human possibility in every way we can, and that means taking each and every human being seriously as best we know how.
Thank you both. As I listen to you, I'm definitely aware that I agree. I don't know that our work has ever been more important than it is right now. And what gives me, one of the things that gives me hope is, well, represented here in the space, you know, by the people who've gathered, by the communities that they represent, by the number of people that I hear say when they've encountered a book or practices or resources from our website or experienced a circle of trust, now that I know something else is possible, I will not be satisfied with the way things have been. And that gives me incredible hope, because that's what this takes, is enough of us refusing, Parker, as you say, to continue to conspire in our own diminishment, and instead to move towards the wholeness, the healing, the liberation that is possible when we take that deep bow to human dignity and to integrity, both within ourselves and with one another. So thank you so much. We do want to leave some time for the voices of other people. Obviously, in this format, it's hard for us to bring those voices in. So we've invited you to put some things in the chat, and Eliza and I will do our very best to try to capture some of these questions. I'm aware that a lot of things are coming in the chat right now, and I am notoriously bad for being able to follow that while it's happening. But I think Eliza maybe is going to take the first swing at offering up something there.
I wish there was a depth-o-meter to chats, because there's so much depth in this chat right now. I just want to honor all of it and realize we won't be able to do that justice. Okay, so what's standing out to me is this question from Lauren Buck. Thank you for the question. How might we continue to deep bow to those who refuse or cannot give us the same respect and welcome? Thank you for that question, Lauren.
Well, that's a tough question. Start by acknowledging how emotionally difficult that is. I'm going to start again by saying that you have to have a constant, steady flow of experience with people where that is not a problem in order to sustain your spirit and go into the world in places where it is a problem. There's a, in my work with teachers, I've often experienced the ways in which a group of students can be very hard on a teacher by appearing to be in a posture of constantly dissing anything that teacher does, anything that teacher says, anything that teacher is. And I've worked with teachers to try to help all of us who teach do a deeper diagnosis of where that's coming from. Because it's possible to teach to the source of that pathology rather than simply to the symptoms of the pathology. It's not an easy place to get to. It takes a lot of discipline, but it's really about understanding the depth of woundedness that leads people to diss other people. That's a very hard diagnosis to hold when you're the one getting dissed. It's a very hard diagnosis to hold when you feel like you're getting wounded on a daily basis. But I don't know any other way forward except to say I have to be able to see beyond the presenting symptoms of hate or anger into a good diagnosis of where that hate and anger are coming from. And it's often a projected hate or anger that has something to do with the circumstances of that person's life. I think I've often talked about our work as a possible new way of envisioning nonviolent social change, which nonviolent movements having been very influential in my life. And I think at the heart of nonviolent social change is an alternative diagnosis of where the violence is coming from. So that the answer is not weapons of war, not shooting people down and taking people out. But the answer is to understand the others so deeply that you actually get to a place of yearning for, wishing for, hoping for the other's well-being. That's a hard place to get to. I understand that, but I don't know any meaningful response other than that. It seems to me the alternatives are we hang out with people who agree with us all the time, or we simply withdraw from the field. And we need people who aren't going to go either of those routes, but are going to try to stay engaged in some life-giving way.
Thank you, Parker. Marcia Hallio, I might not be saying that correctly, says she's using your 2014 edition of Healing the Heart of Democracy in a class that she's teaching at the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at the University of Delaware. And some students have asked her how you might change the book in view of what has happened in our country since 2016 and the Trump administration. Do you have any thoughts about what you'd like to share about that?
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts about that. I don't know that we have time for them. But I'm going to say this: the the core of the book remains true and actionable for me. We have got to learn to talk with one another. I understand all the ways in which democracy has been compromised over many, many years. In the case of this country, compromised from the get-go by the evil reality of enslavement of human beings as our economic, part of our economic foundation. We've never had a democracy that lived up to the words of the founders themselves. And yet we do have a principle about we the people and the voices of we the people, from which our politics is getting increasingly divorced. It's worsened, I think, in the last decade, this gap between what people want, as demonstrated by decent polling, and what is actually being delivered by a political establishment that's operating on signals from another planet. I don't know if Bill Moyers, whom I regard as very wise about these things, once said the only answer to the power of big money in politics is the power of the people to call us back to something that works. And he was talking specifically about an effort to overturn a ruling that gave corporations the voice of an individual in financing candidates and campaigns. So I'm going to continue to put my bets on gathering people in communities where we learn to talk to each other and where we get tools that can make us more, give us more agency in the institutions that need reforming. I don't know of any other way forward. The cheap and easy way is some kind of authoritarian control, where you don't have to worry about the voice of the people at all. And of course, there seems to be an audience for that in the US right now. That's to be resisted by people who are willing and able to talk to each other and are willing and able to work at talking to each other.
Thank you, Parker. I think this is a really important question, and for me comes back to the idea of courage. Like, so when I was in a circle of trust, there was someone I was drawn to because their ideologies were very different. And I was drawn to them, like I wanted to talk to them, or I wanted to go completely away from them. This thing. And in the circle of trust experience, I was able to see them. And what I hadn't also experienced was that I had the courage to be able to say, this is what it feels like from my experience as a brown queer person in the United States. And they had never heard that before. And so this space was given to have that, as opposed to the back and forth. So I want to lift up this question from Julie, who brought up that the Clearness Committee experience was very profound and sacred, both as a focused person and a member. When, how, why did that become a part of the circle work? How might this process be a place for healing and hope in the future?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in the Clearness Committee. It's been transformative for my life over the years, especially around vocational decision-making and other personal issues. And I'm really glad to hear your story, Eliza, about being able to speak your truth in the face of a truth that that you found difficult to hear, would be, I guess, one way to put it, perhaps alienating. One of the things I'm always eager to say to people about our use of the phrase safe space is we do not guarantee that you won't hear anything disturbing in this space, which seems to be the aim of some academic spaces that use the safe space nomenclature. We don't guarantee that you won't hear anything disturbing. What we do guarantee is that you will have an opportunity, without anybody trying to fix, save, correct you, or set you straight, to speak your truth into the circle and lay it alongside whatever other truths are out there. That's what we mean by safe space, the capacity to tell your truth. We believe that there is a healing potential in people laying their views alongside one another and sitting with those, even when they create tension, sitting with those long enough to learn about themselves and about each other. One of our principles and practices, our touchstones, is turn to wonder. So you hear something that you find even offensive, and you turn to wondering where that's coming from in that person, which loops back to what I said earlier about meeting the quote enemy in the classroom or out in the hustings. And then you wonder what it is about yourself that has created that reaction. I'm not saying that that's the only good way to respond. I think there's always a place in life for direct engagement, for something that's more confrontational, if you will, something that's more headlong. But we do so much of that with so few good results that it seems to me it's reasonable to argue for an alternative kind of space where we do this deep listening and we practice the disciplines that allow us to get everybody's piece out there to be considered by each individual and by the group. And I'll just end by saying, I have seen, one of the ways in which I've seen the inner teacher at work, I have seen people who heard something of the sort that you said to this other individual in the story you just told. I've seen people who heard something like that for the first time in their lives have moments of awakening where they were able to say freely to themselves, I didn't understand what the impact of a statement like that might be. Now that I do, I have to at least reconsider my view on that issue or my response to that inquiry. And when that kind of growth happens from within, it gives us an important alternative to the fact that social science has demonstrated time and again over the last 10 years. Straight up debate doesn't talk anybody out of anything. Just give up the ghost on that one. Straight up political debate doesn't change minds. It tends to reinforce where people are.
And conversation of the heart does change.
It does. It does. If it gets inside you and grows in you, it's transformative.
Well, this is going to need to be our last question, but it's a lovely one from Courtney Bournes, who says she had the privilege of serving on the CCR board for 7 years. Thank you, Courtney. And continues to be enriched by the experience. And one of the things that has stood out for her most in the CCR culture of friendship and mutual affection. And she wants to know what we think contributes to that special part of the CCR culture.
Well, my first answer is cookies.
It's always cookies with you.
Or pastries, some snack, we need snacks to be friends.
The inner teacher gets hungry.
Yeah, right, exactly. A voracious appetite as far as I know. Oh my, I don't have a great answer to that, but it does remind me of something that that I said 25 years ago. I treasure these memories because I remember hardly anything that I ever said or did 25 minutes ago. but there are some things from 25 years ago that do jump out at me. And one of the things I said is we began this enterprise at the Fetzer Institute in Michigan, a philanthropic foundation that was enormously generous with us through people like Rob Lehman and Dave Slider and Mickey Olavanti, our early staff partners in this. Ran with us for 15 years and really helped us get this thing in the air. Early on, they asked a question that every foundation has a right to ask when you're asking them for money. And they said to me, this was before Marcy Jackson and Rick Jackson came on board, how will you know whether you've succeeded? And I had a very simple answer. I said, I'll know that we have succeeded when we have a track record of attracting compassionate, competent, and committed people to the work that we're trying to do together with public education or medicine or philanthropy or the law or politics and citizenship, nonprofit leadership, any of the other fields in which we've worked over these last 25 years. I will know we have succeeded when we attract people to be facilitators, we attract people on our board, we attract people on our staff, and we attract participants to our circles, to our retreats, who are compassionate, competent, and committed people. You can spot those people a mile away. And we've had a ton of them over the years. And they've helped shape what we do. So Courtney, greetings to you. Thank you for your board service. And I rest my case.
Well, cheers to this gathered group of beautiful, committed, heart-centered folks. Thank you both for this conversation. I feel really great.
Thank you, Eliza. Thank you so much.
Thank you both for this conversation.
Hello, everyone. And first of all, thank you, Catherine, Parker, and Eliza for that beautiful conversation. My heart is just full, and you just reminded me of so many reasons why I love this organization so much, why I value it so much. And I mean, you've named one of the things that's true for me, and that is that in Courage Renewal retreats and programs and meetings, I know I can show up as my true self, and that I'll encounter others who are also bringing their authenticity as well. And the sharing, which we can do because of honoring and connecting with our souls, our inner teachers. I mean, I have no doubt that this is what the world needs right now. So Parker, I want to say that I've been so moved by your insights and your humor and your kindness over the years. And I remember, just want to tell one short story that I remember you graciously agreeing to have lunch with me at the Omega Institute years ago. You were giving a workshop there, and I attended it, and I was wondering how to bring Courage Renewal principles and practices into my life. And you graciously had breakfast with me, and we had just a lovely conversation. But also, your books were important to me in my teaching and my administrative and other leadership roles during my time at Spelman College. But the ways that so many people have put wheels on your ideas, as you say, have prepared me for the self-love retreats for Black women that I'm offering right now. And these retreats are my way of living on the Mobius strip, of doing deep inner work in community, work that I know is helping myself and others to challenge injustice and oppression by increasing our self-love and authenticity, as well as the courage and stamina to offer our gifts more freely and fully to the world. So we do our inner work so we can show up in the world differently, and freeing ourselves from internalized oppression helps us challenge externalized oppression. So this important work that I'm doing is possible for me because of this important organization. So I thank you, Parker, and I thank everyone who has made the Center for Courage and Renewal so important to me and others over its 25-year history. And now we have the delight of viewing a video in which people share about the impact that you, Parker, and the center have had in their lives. So let's watch.
Is this okay? I just want to make sure before I hit play. Okay.
I love the Center for Courage and Renewal. I have found a community of kindred spirits in this organization, other folks who are committed to deep introspection and to living authentically and sharing who they are with others.
How has that made a difference in my life? Well, quite simply, it's given me Clint, the authentic Clint. I've become Clint. And that happened because of being in several retreats and working with others, developing a relational trust, using the touchstones.
The impact of the touchstones on my life. You know, when I first encountered them, I thought, wow, what an incredible tool for engaging with groups, for drawing people into circles. But I think, like others, I've found that they're more than that. They're really a way of living.
I often say that my time with the Center for Courage and Renewal has saved me. It has given me the strength and the courage to show up as my authentic self.
I think one of the biggest impacts I've had in these circles over the years has been a growing trust that there is a reality to myself and to others that we can call soul or heart or the inner teacher.
You can sit with a group of people who are really different from you, or some of them fairly similar, in a circle, and it is a place of peace. It's a place of peace because of the touchstones we use, which say that everyone has an inner teacher and that we just allow people to speak from their inner teacher into the circle.
It changed my life. It taught me ways of being present with others without having to fix them, without having to facilitate, but to just bring myself and my inner light and my truth to the circle.
Parker, thank you. You have reminded me that to teach is to create a space in which the community of truth is practiced.
I've read about half of Parker's books, and that had a huge impact on me. And I just enjoyed being with him. I mean, he just is such a nice guy, and he taught me a lot.
I believe that Parker Palmer's work invites and encourages all people to experience what is important in their life and in their soul in every aspect of their work.
Let Your Life Speak spoke to me. It spoke to the students and the Wisdom Center at Spelman College, and it allowed me to understand that what I've been seeking for is possible.
The 3 books, The Hidden Wholeness, Let Your Life Speak, and of course, The Courage to Teach, were edited and published in Spanish. And we are perfectly aware that these 3 books are widely distributed in Spain and Latin America, and they are profoundly impactful.
So the center and Parker Palmer's work, in just this last week, I saw with my own eyes in very short periods of time, helped educators to stand up more straight with their feet on the ground, standing on their values, inspired to do their work full of energy, and holding the gifts that they have to share with their students and communities.
I've found that in the connection with Courage community, the Courage community, there's a sense of sharing in our common humanity and acceptance and support, all of which add up to a very nutritious and nurturing place to be doing work in what can be a very challenging world and very challenging times for all of us.
We all benefit from ongoing practices of deep listening, risk-taking, and openness to being vulnerable.
And the more that we can invite people to listen to their inner teacher, without the noise, I think we will be in a better place to collaborate, to listen to each other, and to heal.
We need each other more than ever in these times. We cannot do this alone. And in that activity of practicing in a circle of trust, we can bring that home wherever we live.
We need tangible ways to make a difference. Again, if that's in our families or in our own lives or in our direct communities, how can we as individuals make a difference within the larger forces of hardship and grief and pain? We're looking for not just hope, but ways that we can influence and make change.
Will involve courage, a lot of courage, and it's time for us to take a deep look at ourselves, in my opinion, to see what kind of mark each one of us can make, because I feel really responsible for myself, but also for our family, and also for our community.
Never has it been more important than today to focus on those questions of bringing our full humanity to the important work we are doing in the world. In my lifetime, there's never been a more important time as we're wrestling, I think, with improving organizations and acknowledging, reconciling, and repairing the centuries of horror that has been perpetrated across lines of race and class and all the other ways that we human beings distinguish who's in and who's not. Held wisely and well, I think the Courage Renewal approach can have a huge impact on our collective capacity to engage and sustain such conversations in our organizations and in our communities.
So I want to take this opportunity just to express my deep gratitude to the center, to Parker, and to all those in the world who are doing this work. It's transformational, and I know it's needed.
I'm profoundly grateful to life for having found this center and these methodologies and wisdom. And I'm profoundly happy and joyful for these 25 years of contribution and for the 25 years that starts now.
Thank you, Parker, for your work. Thank you, Center for Courage and Renewal, for the impacts that you've had on the lives of so very many, including mine. Happy anniversary.
I want to end with deep gratitude to Parker and to Sharon, to Rick and Marcy, and to the countless facilitators, friends, funders, and Courage Renewal staff members who have worked over many years to bring this good work to where it is today in the world. Happy anniversary, Courage Renewal.
How lovely, how moving. Beautiful to see. So Parker, I want to say as a Courage Renewal facilitator and as the current CCR board chair, I'm honored to help celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Center for Courage and Renewal. And I'm also honored to celebrate you on the occasion of your Lifetime Achievement Award offered by the Freedom of Spirit Fund, an offshoot of the Fetzer Global Trust in the UK. This award included a $50,000 cash prize, which you graciously and generously gave to the Center for Courage and Renewal. So thank you, Parker. Thank you for the countless ways you've offered your gifts and your generosity to the world. And today, I'm honored to offer to you the very first Center for Courage and Renewal Legacy Award and gratitude for all that you've done. So everyone, please join me. Thank you, Parker.
Oh my, is it my turn to say something?
Yes.
I was not fully aware that this was going to happen, although I recently had some hints about it. I'm very, very grateful. You know, whenever I receive something, not that often, like that Freedom of Spirit Award that came last year, I guess, my first thought is it's a clerical error. And that needs to be checked out right away with the people who made the error. So I checked that out, and it turned out it wasn't a clerical error, but instantly my reaction was, this isn't my award, this is our award, because there is absolutely no way at all that I could have done the work that we are celebrating here today. That has taken so many people, good people, competent, caring, committed people, who've put in a lot of time and energy over all these years. I've mentioned Marcy Jackson and Rick Jackson as the founding directors, and at the end of that last film clip, you also saw Terry Chadsey, who was the next executive director, to whom we're all grateful. And of course, today, with the staff, wonderful, wonderful staff that we have at the center, with Catherine McKelvin and John Fenner and Taylor Culliver and Michelle Harrison, all the board members over the years. When I hear the stories that I've heard today, including Vita, the story you told about your work at Spelman with Black women and women of color, I'm struck again by the miracle of how this work has reached into lives that I could not possibly have any in-depth understanding of, having occupied this white male privileged body for 83 years. It's community, and it's the bonds of community, and it's the bonds of affection, and it's relational trust that allows these sparks to jump and to be mutually informed as people gather around the source and find ways to light their own torch with those sparks. I'm so very deeply grateful. So in accepting this award, I accept it on behalf of all of us, board staff, over the years, facilitators, participants, and friends today who simply join their energy with ours, even if they've not experienced a program. I want to also make an announcement, really on behalf of the board, which they've given me permission to do. I'm not a member of the board because I'm not good at that kind of thing, but thank God we have people who are. We've had wonderful friends over the years, and two of the most special, whom you saw in the course of that last film clip, are Joyce and Dick McFarland in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I had the great privilege of spending a lot of time with Joyce and Dick over the years, including most recently with Dick just a few weeks ago up on the North Shore of Lake Superior. A wonderful, amazing, graced and gifted people, competent, compassionate, caring, committed people of the sort that we all treasure. Sadly, we lost Joyce last May, and we're still grieving her loss along with Dick. The board has established the Joyce and Dick McFarland Fund, and I have suggested, and I think the board has accepted, that the $50,000 cash prize that came with the Freedom of Spirit Award be used to seed the Joyce and Dick McFarland Fund. I can't think of anybody with whom I'd rather walk hand in hand in the enterprise of supporting the center's work than Joyce and Dick. Joyce, who understood it so deeply and well and gave so much to it, and Dick, who carries on in that same vein, always with great humor. Dick, I'll just do our little private thing and say, I love you, man. And the next time we're together, we'll clink a couple of Budweiser bottles and celebrate life. So grateful for all of you. And so, as they do on public radio, it's time for a very brief invitation to support our work. I hope you will. Whatever you're able to offer up by way of a contribution to the center is encouraging to us. It's just good to know that we touch hands and hearts in this shared enterprise, which has borne so much good fruit over the years. I've benefited from it in a million ways, many of which I probably can't even name. But the growth that's been here for me, the friendships that I've made, I don't know, the circle of blessing that just keeps passing it around is something that has very much enveloped my life, and for which I'm deeply, deeply, deeply grateful. So thank you all. I know we're not finished yet. We have a couple more things to do, but this has been such a joy, and I'm so very grateful. Deep bow to everyone.
Thank you, Parker. We did post in the chat, if you would like to make a contribution today, all funds that we collect throughout this event and over the next 24 hours will be used to continue to grow the Joyce and Dick McFarland Fund. And now I'm gonna bring on Catherine McKelvin, our Executive Director, and we're gonna start transitioning to what comes next for the Center for Courage and Renewal. So Catherine.
Thank you, Taylor, and thank you, Parker. Feeling very moved by a number of things that have happened in the last hour and a half. And so maybe I'll just start by expressing just my personal gratitude. Parker, to you, certainly, but to every single person who has believed in this work over the years, and to every single person who has felt like it was something that was worth their time and their energy, their financial support, their hopes, their investments. in all kinds of different ways. Because as Parker continues to say, this has only happened, the work that we have been able to do in the world, around the world, has only been possible because so many people have brought their hearts and their gifts to these spaces and to the people and the places that they care about. So thank you, Taylor, for posting the link to the Joyce and Dick McFarland Fund and letting people know that donations that they make today will go directly into that fund. I want to say just a little bit about why the board created that fund, and that the board created that fund both to honor Joyce and Dick McFarland and the legacy of their giving and support to the Center for Courage and Renewal, but also to make sure that we could continue to support the things that they also cared deeply about. And so as we've been leaning into these next 25 years, there have been 3 themes that have continued to emerge for us. And they've emerged in conversations with folks like Joyce and Dick, with other funders, donors, facilitators, participants, people who haven't ever sat in a circle of trust but have connected to Parker's work. We've been listening deeply over the last number of years to all of these different voices. And 3 things that we kept hearing over and over again that we've now taken in as intentions that are moving us forward are expanding access, deepening engagement, and nurturing belonging. And I want to say just a little bit about how we're beginning to live into each of these 3 things. As we look to expanding access, you may have noticed, you may have heard that we launched a new website. We're still building this site out to tell the story of our work in the world, to begin to share more people's voices in that story in their own voices, to be able to better share the resources that we have to offer and the ones that we will continue to create, and to connect people to the work that Courage and Renewal facilitators are offering around the world. We're also developing programs and resources that meet people where they are in formats that work for their lives, for their time zones, and building our capacity, as you have already heard, to share this work in different languages, in different cultural contexts. And we're finding ways to lower the barriers to access for our work, whether that be cost, travel, time, whatever those might be. And we're also connecting and partnering with organizations and people who are a part of what we think of as this larger movement. People who are working in their own ways to honor human dignity and integrity, and are meeting today's challenges with the power of love and compassion, and moving the world toward healing and liberation, and a world that we can live in. In order we're expanding access with the hope of also being able then to deepen people's engagement with our approach. Circles of trust, which you've heard referenced a number of times already in this gathering, and that many of you have had experiences of, continue to be vital spaces where we can practice and explore our inner and outer landscapes, where we can tap into our own deep wisdom to that inner teacher, and where we can bear witness to our own integrity and dignity and to that of others, and work towards that wholeness and healing. But the principles and practices and values are not only things that we use when we're in circles of trust. They also represent ways of being with ourselves and with one another that make different things possible. Ways of being in the world, ways of being with the world. It also represents ways of perceiving the world, ways of understanding and interpreting what's in us and what's between us. And so, in addition to the important work that we do preparing facilitators who can lead these immersive circles of trust, we're also offering new programs that help people understand the foundations that undergird those spaces, the foundations on which our approach is built, and programs and resources that help people bring these ways of being and perceiving more fully into their own lives, to the people and causes that they care about. I want to say too that deepening engagement also refers to the ways that we continue to learn from our own practices, how to hold them with integrity, how to communicate them with skill and care. Center for Courage and Renewal is run by a staff and board who all lean strongly into this approach in order to accomplish our work together. And we recognize that in doing that, we're also helping the world to see that organizations can be lived into differently. Another really important part of our continued engagement with our principles and practices and our approach is that our facilitators are part of a learning community where we share ideas and challenges, where we share things that concern us, where we share deep and important questions that we're holding of ourselves, of each other's, and of our shared work. And one of the things that I hear really often from people who are connecting to the work of Courage and Renewal for the first time is something along the lines of, I had thought I was alone. Or, now that I know it's possible to relate to myself and others in life-giving ways, I need more of that kind of community because I want to be able to continue to do that in the spaces where I live and work. But I go back to spaces that don't share those principles, don't share those values. And I want to know how I can live them more fully. That was certainly true of my experience, that meeting other people who were trying to walk what we call this Mobius strip of connecting inner truth and outer lives made a profound and probably, as I said, life-saving difference to me to be able to connect in that kind of community. Some of you have had opportunities to do that in various ways, and you've borne witness to the power of that community. Later this year, we're excited to offer the opportunity for all of you to become members of the Center for Courage and Renewal and to connect with others on the community platform that we're building. This community platform will be a space where you can meet other people whose lives have been impacted by this work, where you can learn from one another, where you can organize in groups of affinity or geography or whatever ways you feel connected to other people. There will be opportunities for you to be a part of learning communities and for you to share your own hopes and dreams and challenges, and for us to all collectively learn from one another. Importantly, I think it will also help us to see one another and to recognize that we are not alone in this work, that there are actually millions of people who have connected to Parker's writing or to the work of the Center for Courage and Renewal. And there's power among us. And so I hope that for any of you who have found meaning, who have found hope in Parker's writing or in your experience of the Courage and Renewal approach, I hope that you'll join us in that space or in whatever way makes sense to you for your life. We're living into an awareness that we have the power to nurture belonging and to nurture community. And I hope you hear us saying that each and every one of you is an important part of that, and you all belong here. We're grateful for everything that you have brought to our work, to your own lives, to the people that you care about. And so as we look towards the next 25 years, it's with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of inspiration and a lot of excitement, and also a recognition that it's going to take all of us. The world needs every bit of what we have to bring to it. So a deep bow to each and every one of you. I want to give each of us just a minute. There's been a lot that has been shared in this space in a relatively short period of time, and you each have your own stories as well, and you each have your own thoughts and questions that I know have been emerging for you during this time. And so I want to take just a few minutes for us to hold a space of just some reflection, where you can just take a moment, you can keep your video on or turn it off, but you can capture just words or phrases or anything that you feel like you want to make sure you take with you from this time together. When we come back, in maybe 5 minutes. Bring with you whatever you'd like to use in order to join in our toast. So whatever beverage or snack or whatever else you'd like to bring to that, because we're going to be inviting Marcy and Rick Jackson to help lead us in that time. So thank you. See you in just a few minutes. As people make their way back from reflecting in a short break, I want to just name that we made a really intentional decision to host this as a Zoom meeting instead of a Zoom webinar. And part of that was because we wanted you to be able to see each other's faces and not just, names in a chat. And while I admit it's a bit overwhelming to have this many people and this many screens, I just have taken a minute to flip through the different screens and to catch up on some of the chat that I had missed. And it's just such an honor to see each of you here. And whether you have been a part of this work as a former staff member, former board member, a facilitator, a donor, a funder, a participant in the circle that I led, it's just a real delight to be here. Thank you. I know you have a lot of things you can do with your time on a Sunday, or I guess in some cases early Monday morning. We're really grateful that you chose to spend it with us. So I want to take just a minute to do a very quick introduction because they've already really been introduced and mentioned a number of different times in a number of different voices in the time that we've shared together. Rick and Marcy Jackson, who co-founded the Center for Courage and Renewal with Parker and helped to prepare the very first generations of Courage and Renewal facilitators. Marcy continued in that role even after she and Rick had stepped down as co-directors. We owe so very much to them, both collectively, and it's also true that they have been mentors to so many of us who have connected to this community, and certainly that is true for me. And so I'm aware that I wouldn't be here and definitely in this space if it weren't for their encouragement and their love and friendship. So Marcy and Rick, I'm really delighted for people to get to see you and for all of us to get to hear from
you. Thank you, Catherine, for that very generous introduction. And thank you for your leadership. Who you are and what you're bringing in this time is so important, and it's making a real difference. Thank you. Oof, I'm still reeling from that last video, and I know there's one to come too, with all these wonderful just tributes and testimonials. And as Catherine was just saying, to see all of your beautiful faces, and to it's just bringing back so many memories and wonderful stories and funny moments, poignant moments. So it's just lovely to be here with all of you. We've been invited to give a toast to the road behind and to what's ahead. And I want you to rest assured we're not going into a lot of history here, but Rick and I are going to just give a few remarks to set the stage before we all raise a glass to the center and to the next 25 years. So the truth is, actually, when I think back 25 years ago, we really weren't sure where we were headed or how far we would go. But what we did have was a dream. We had a dream that was born of Parker's work and writing, a dream of a way of being together that honors both the inner life and our outer work in the world, and how we can make a difference in our worlds and in our communities. And a desire to create spaces where integrity, dignity, and relational trust are at the center, and we're encouraged and cultivated. And more than that, to bring those back into our workplaces and communities to transform our world. I'm so happy to say that that's still a version of the animating dream that CCR is following today. I also want to thank you, Parker, from the bottom of our hearts for trusting us with your ideas, with your friendship, and being traveling partners for so many years, to grow and to tend your ideas and to bring them into form in a different way, in a new way. And I also want to congratulate you on the award that you just received. So though we didn't know where we were headed necessarily, what we were more certain about was how we wanted to go about doing what we did in those early days. And when you come this late in the program, you can always assume that somebody else will have already said what you were planning to say. And Parker, you named some of these things already, but I'll just briefly say them again. So a couple of things that really come back to me is our initial decisions to first grow organically with thoughtful intention and with integrity. Parker, you called it an agricultural model. I prefer to use the term a gardening metaphor that seemed to inform our early steps and our many, many trials and errors. We also began very close to home, and that would specifically be close to Parker and Sharon's home, as they really graciously offered us their space, their hospitality, their warmth and the beautiful nature of their space for the beginnings of this work, both to begin planning it, to be the site for our first facilitator preparation programs, until we finally got too large and they felt they needed to kick us out and have us find our meals elsewhere. But we were such, we were so lovely, so warmly invited into their personal space. And that really served to create, I think, that culture that I saw Courtney Borns had mentioned about the affection and the friendship and the mutual regard that has always been at the heart of this movement. Secondly, we knew that we needed to and wanted to develop this project. It wasn't a center initially, but a project of the Fetzer Institute with community and in community. We knew that we needed many hearts and hands to grow this organization and to create a movement that was dedicated to a more loving and just world. I think what's moved me most on this call today has been to see so many of you who so generously shared your experience and your ideas, who gave of your time and your talents and your creativity, and offered your presence and your heart in those early days of growing and tending our initial efforts. I really wish I could name you all, but you know who you are. And finally, this was something, Terry, thank you for first mentioning this. And I just want to give again a special shout out to all of the people, former staff members for the center, board members past and present, and Courage and Renewal facilitators who have really been the heart of what it is that we've been trying to bring into the world, who are continuing to do that so faithfully and well. So I will now hand it to Rick, but again, just so honored to be with you in this auspicious celebration.
Thank you, Marcy. Yeah, what a privilege it is to be in community of this kind, especially at this time. So many of you have spoken with such personal words about what this work means to you, about the work of the center. And I was just thinking how one other way of describing it would be the Center for those who do heartbreaking work. That's why Courage and Renewal is so important. Because anybody that you talk with who's been in public school teacher for a while, or a pastor, or a physician, or a community-based worker, the list goes on and on. In these times, is inevitably doing work that will break their hearts, work that's hard to bear, and yet work that is so important, so deeply important. So coming together in circles that allow us to name what's on our hearts and find ways to support each other could hardly be more important. So we're with such a community today, and we're doing a pivot from honoring that which has happened in the past to that which is currently happening, and that which is, shall I say, growing forward, sticking with our organic metaphors. And how thrilled we are that the stewardship of our organization is in such incredibly capable heads, hands, and hearts. Catherine, we're looking at you and your amazing team and board members, just extraordinary people. We bow to your soulful dedication and service. And we celebrate all of you who contributed and are still contributing to where the Center for Courage and Renewal finds itself today. You continue to teach us and show us the way of leading and living with kindness and care and creativity and, yes, courage. So now, as we all know, there is so much more to do to realize the dreams, not just that we had at the inception and continue to embrace, but the goals and dreams that Catherine has so beautifully outlined that have been affirmed by the current board and staff and community. Taylor has crafted a brief video that lifts up a number of visions from you in this community about the work that comes ahead of us now. So we'll take a few minutes to watch that, after which have your beverage at hand.
In 25 years from now, I hope that CCR's impact on the world has helped people to value the dignity of other people, even when there's differences between them.
Is that each and every one sees him, her, their self as a full human being to be valued and to be loved and to be embraced by the others around them.
I imagine us meeting in wonderful settings. I imagine us combining this work with lots of other possibilities. I imagine us finding ways to reach across the globe and create communities of belonging that allow for people to show up and be reminded of what's possible.
The impact I hope to see with the work of Courage and Renewal in my community in Guatemala is that we have more facilitators who do this work in Spanish, even in Mayan local language. And we are designing and implementing meaningful programs with the guidance of Parker's books in Spanish. And with this, more individuals get access to such an important work for themselves.
And the other impact 25 years from now that I would hope for is that the generative spirit the imagination and creativity that comes from holding and experiencing spaces like those hosted by the Courage and Renewal collaboration might lead us to continuing to bring ourselves and our creativity to the deep hunger that exists in the world.
I think the Courage and Renewal approach is needed now, perhaps more than any other time in our recent history. The challenges that we're facing, from climate change to global pandemics to economic inequality to the political divisions, are so great and so complex that they really require new ways of being in the world and thinking if we are to find solutions, if we are to survive some of these challenges.
Courage and Renewal is a real blessing for the world in teaching people to hold paradox, to hold opposite thoughts, to not have to lock in to a certain way of being and a certain way of thinking, to be able to flow with uncertainty and variability and volatility, which is what the world is increasingly going to be made of. So I hope there are lots of us who are around to hold that kind of space for whoever shows up in whatever circumstance.
We cannot do this alone. That we need a strong community. We need a community voice. We need people who will challenge us. We need people who will support us. We need people who will walk alongside us. And that remembering of the power of community is a critical and beautiful element of the Center for Courage and Renewal's approach.
We all need trustworthy relationships within which we can reconnect with what matters most to us, so we can bring renewed vitality and healing agency to our communities and to our efforts in the healing of our world. I know that sounds big, but I also have seen that it's possible, because I've seen amazing, courageous ripples from individuals within our work out to their families and communities as a result of our approach. People are hanging in for the hard work of reconciliation, of racial and ecological healing, and more.
We are each called to bring our deepest gifts to bear to help either solve problems that folks are facing or enable people to live the best way they can through these challenging times.
Over the next 25 years, this movement of like-hearted people can sow seeds of truth and understanding, can provide opportunities for healing and forgiveness of self and others, and can contribute significantly to a more respectful and humane public discourse, and to care and preserve our shared planetary home. This will come not from idly dreaming about a better future, but from doing the challenging personal and interpersonal work to listen deeply, to build connections, to right wrongs, and to make the necessary sacrifices for a future that is possible for all of us.
25 years from now, I hope that we can all stand in a circle and understand the beauty of our origins, the beauty of how we resonate with nature, the beauty of each grace of each life that's right in front of us. And what a powerful mystery and opportunity it is for us to experience compassion.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So today we celebrate a legacy of living with friendship and love in service of a timeless work. to become whole persons in a whole world. We invite you to raise your glasses to our shared past, to where we stand in this present moment, and to the promise for our future efforts through the Center for Courage and Renewal. For all that has been, thanks. For all that shall be, yes.
And as many of you know, we love and use poetry in our programs and retreats, so it seems fitting to conclude with some words from the poem Seven of Pentacles by Marge Piercy. Consider this as a guide and a sending forth for our next 25 years. Weave real connections, create real nodes, build real houses. Live a life you can endure. Make love that is loving. Reach out, keep reaching out, keep bringing in. This is how we are going to live for a long time. Not always. For every gardener knows that after the digging, after the planting, after the long season of tending and growth, the harvest comes. May it be so.
Thank you, Marcy and Rick, and to everyone who contributed videos, to all of you who took time out to be with us this evening or wherever time finds you. I know we have people from all over the world on the call. Like I said earlier, I think 21 countries had registered, and I see a New Zealander and an Australian and someone from the UK. This work is global, and it's such an exciting time. The momentum is crazy right now, and I think you all should get really excited about the charge that we have moving forward as an organization to meet the very deep needs of the world. I want to tell a quick story and then we'll hop off. And some people have heard this before, but when I came home with my daughter, who's now 7 months old, in February, it was kind of right at the beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, alongside tons of other violence, destruction, oppression all around the world, both local in my community. And I sat in this very room holding my little baby girl, and we started to have a dance party, because that's what you do to get your kid to sleep, is you dance with them. And I just remember kind of looking down at her and at the same time holding all that was going on in the world, and just started to like sob. But what I'm thankful for is that the Center for Courage and Renewal, our approach in this incredible community, it teaches me that I can stand there, right, and hold the new hope that I have right in my arms with everything else that's happening around me. And that just gives me such a deep presence, and a deep sense that whatever comes my way, if I'm doing it with all of you on this call and the many other folks who have not been able to join us today, that we're going to be all right. And so, I want to say that, this stuff works. It works. And now's the time. So if you haven't yet, please visit our new website, There are more than 60 programs on the program calendar. Thank you so much to all of our facilitators for continuing the really committed work of hosting circles of trust and other programs rooted in the approach. It's an invitation for each of you. I want to encourage you to get involved, participate, find ways that you can explore our resources and share our mission with other people in your lives who you think can benefit from our work and from what we have to offer the world. I will remind you again that your financial contributions are so impactful and important today and moving forward to continue to allow us to expand the access to our programs. You cannot believe the demand that's happening right now for the different programs that we have to offer and that our facilitators have to offer. And we get questions all the time about financial aid and different resources and scholarships that people can tap into. And so any contributions that you make tonight to support the Joyce and Dick McFarland Fund will go a long way in helping us open the gates as widely as possible for this work. And I'm so appreciative to all of you. This is a celebration of all of you, of just the deep impact that you've had in my life personally, in your own communities as you carry this work forward, and the ripple effects that continue to grow in the world today. And so I'll end by just saying, may we continue to move forward. When baby Nova is 25 years old, which will be our 50th anniversary, I hope that the Center for Courage and Renewal continues to be a force for love and compassion, for moving us towards personal and societal wholeness. And that will be true because of all of you. So thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. We've captured all of your chats. Please go make a donation, go sign up for a program. Reach out to us with any questions that you might have, and let's continue to carry this work forward for the next 25 years. I invite all of you to come off mute. Now's the time. Say a hearty and goodbye.
Amen, Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
you.
I love this. I love this.
Thank you.
Where are the cookies?
Thank you, Parker.
Oh, gosh.
Thank you, Carol Casbon. Yes.
Thank you.
Blessings. Blessings.
Blessings.